he just turned with a big smile and went, and that's your grave.
And I would get square eyes and I'd fall asleep proofreading.
Copy it all, stick it in, proofread that for me.
There was a little boy in my class who used to throw the wooden blocks across the classroom.
But then it become the most important one because of the sugar tax thing.
And I can see them right at the back and I'm like, do I risk life and limb to climb over this trolley, to go under the benches, to get over the mats that stink, to get those done? No.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Say You Look Tired with me, Martin, your host, and Dan, the co-host. And yeah, we thought today, like we were chatting just before, but like teachers do like 50, 60 hour weeks, which is mad. But then there's always little things that just get added on top, which you don't even include in that 50 or 60 hours. And one of them is reports. So we thought we would talk about them today. And hopefully by the end of it, like your time on reports will be reduced down. I think that's the biggest one because I'll be honest with you, if I could, don't know about you, Dan, I would scrap them now.
I hate them.
I'd just get rid of them. Mm-hmm. Just scrap everything about them. I don't know anyone that gets anything out of them because I know people say, oh, the parents do this and parents do that. The parents would be happy with a sentence which says, yeah, they're doing well. Mm-hmm. My personal opinion.
I've got some teacher friends who love doing them and I'm trying to figure out why. But I remember the first year I got to do them. You know, I was 24. It was a long time ago. And I was like, I'm writing school reports. After the first one, I was like, oh no.
I was about to say, I was the same there. After one, I was like, what? Is there another 29 of these?
I've got 29. And those are the days when I had to print them out. So the first procedure I remember, you had to do them all on the laptop, print them out, put them in a paper folder, give to the head teacher who then went through them with a pen, then give them back to you to do corrections. And then they went out and you were not allowed to seal those envelopes until the last day before they went out in case an extra thing came to put in. And they had to be put in a certain order. There was a little note from the head teacher that went first, then your school report, then the attendance slip, and then a couple of other pieces of God knows what.
It just reminded me then when I was doing my first reports, ahead of the time he'd just become the head. So it was the first report he'd had as a head. So we had ours, and then there was a box for a comment from the head, and he hand wrote every one of them. And I was like, wow. And then the next year, he was like, everyone give them to me on a USB because I'm going to type them. And then the year after, his box was gone and it was just a signature. He'd gone like, he must have done the first one. I mean, like,
even then I buy a stamp like, with my signature on it. Oh my goodness, no. I couldn't handwrite all the comments. But like, do you know when you get them back and you have to go through? So I had my reports back and they all had corrections. Yeah. And then it was like getting the report, finding the bit. And then it went to when I became SLT, it sort of changed where people emailed you your reports. Yeah. And what we had to do was highlight the bits they got wrong and email it back. And I was like, but that's going to take longer for me to highlight. Go to the bit. I'd just change it myself. It's always a comma. Oh my goodness, one of my friends was a comma queen. She absolutely loved it. It doesn't need to go in there. I was like, what in the list is going on? Take those commas out. And I text her really annoyed. I was like, if I have to remove one more comma from your school report, I'm going to hit you.
So sometimes though, I think they used to get corrected just for the sake of it. Because I used to recycle my reports to the point of like, after 10 years, this thing had been edited and edited and edited and was just getting copied and pasted. Mm-hmm. Names were getting changed. And it'd still come back with like, that comma needs to get changed or this or that. And I think, this is the 10th time this paragraph's gone to you. Like, how's it still getting a correction?
Uh-huh. Oh no. Like one of my head teachers always, so it depends on who looked at it. Some people like focused with one S and some people want it with two. And I went, right, could somebody just make a decision? So I remember I asking at staff meeting, by the way, can I have a consensus? Focus this year, how many S's? Just so that it was sorted, because I don't want to have to go back and change that. And then like in early years, like our school reports, I tried to minimize it every single year. And I feel like up until last year, I got it to a good point where it was like tick, tick, tick for the different areas of learning, what they scored, and then a little general comment box at the end. And even then, I was recycling them. And I used this thing called Quillbot before AI. So you could put it in and it paraphrases it to another like comment. But I used it like 5 years ago when I discovered it. And I made the mistake in this school, which was toxic, of going into the staff room being like, oh, I did all my reports in one day. So then someone went and fed that back. I get called in after lunch. All my reports are laid out with pink highlighter and all the common phrases that were in, and I had to change them all.
When you say common phrase, you mean like a sentence that was reused, or just like it sounded the same?
Similar, and they wanted them back in by the end of the day, or so. Yeah, and you could do them after school. But I was going to see a concert that night. I was going to see Spice Girls, and I was like, I'm not letting this happen. So I went back to class that afternoon and I said to my TA, look, after the class, I'm going to sit here. If you hear her coming down the corridor, I was like, and I got them all done, emailed them back. When did you do that? And I went, just during lunch.
It's mad all that though. Like I used to have, so we had to do English, maths, science, topic, computer, like each had their own paragraph. And I used to have a like Excel sheet, which linked to a Google sheet where I could put in like drop down boxes of like top, middle, bottom, 1, 2, 3. So I have 3 tops, 3 middle, 3 bottom. I'd pick where they were for each one. I'd click whether they were a boy or a girl. I'd put the name in and I'd click enter and it'd do all the report for me. So I only had to do like the general comments.
That's early AI, Martin.
Do you know what though? I was a big believer from like from a second year in teaching of like, do something right once and then never have to do it again. Mm-hmm. So like it took me probably twice as long to make that as it would have been to write the 30 reports. But then I never had to do it again. Mm-hmm. And talking about AI, like if I was teaching now, all my reports would be AI. And this
all of them.
Or every part of it. And I know people talk about they want it more personal. It's not right. The children deserve like your attention for it. I remember being at my mate's once and he was like, hey, because I was his teacher, he was like, hey, do you want to see a report? I was like, oh yeah. And he handed me like a report which had like 4 pages. And I started reading the front. And he was like, no, I just skip to the back. There's a paragraph at the bottom, which is the personal comment. And I was like, oh, what about the rest of it? He was like, oh, I haven't read that. And I just thought at that point, I'm not bothering with this. No parents sitting there and reading it all. They just want to get to the personal comment. To me, should be make a complete AI with personal comment.
Yeah. And the personal comment you can do. It takes no time at all to do.
Oh, yeah.
And what I sat and did last year was I got my teaching assistant and I sat down over a week. And we thought about each child. Went, tell me something funny that you remember from this year. And I had something as well. And literally I just put that in, done. Because that's what they want to hear. That's the sort of thing they want to hear. And it was harder when the child was someone who was not well behaved. Like, how am I going to reword that they never listen to me, that they swear in the classroom? How can I, they've got a good choice of vocabulary. Let's extend it. And those were usually the reports that took a bit longer to do. Or the font. That was a big thing. My font would randomly change from report to report. And I'm like, excuse me, Dan, it's school policy that it's Tahoma, size 12. Those are size 16. I was like, I had to make it bigger to fill. When I first started teaching, I did make the font bigger to fill the box.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to get away with it.
Yeah, it's just all mad, that stuff though, isn't it? Like all of it, like all the little tricks you have to use, everything like that. But yeah, I personally do think if you're a teacher now and you're not using AI to make your reports, like more fool you. Mm-hmm. Like it's for other parts of teaching, I think helping with lesson ideas, questions, everything, it streaks ahead of it. Like it's going to help you massively. But for your report, it's probably the only thing where you're going to go, that is actively going to probably get you like a week's worth of nights back. Because you probably could use AI to get it done, I'm going to say, in 2 PPA times.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd probably be one PPA time messing about with it, getting it to sound a bit more like you. Although I probably even wouldn't worry about that because do the parents know what you sound like?
Make it sound like me, Northern Irish.
Do you know that they're going to expect it to be formal anyway? And then but playing around, like getting the standards right, getting this right, getting that right, making sure it's in UK rather than American.
Mm-hmm.
But then the second one would just be putting them in and being like, it's this, this, this. To me, like every teacher should be using it that way. The ideal scenario would be just scrap reports because they're not needed. No one wants them.
No.
It's ridiculous. Second one should be the RAS who use AI. To me, there's loads out there, like whether you're using ChatGPT, whether you're using like the TeachMate AI, like any of it. It's there to save you time. And like teachers do 50, 60 hours a week already before you add those little things on. Like when you talk about 50, 60 hours, no one talks about adding the reports. No one talks about the parents' evenings. To me, it's just all about like getting rid of them.
And this time of year, everyone's going to be tired. You're starting to think about data that needs handed in. There's probably a summer fair where you might get sponged. There's also preparing for next year. Maybe you might be moving classrooms. You know, that all of that's going to be coming out soon. The rumors of who's getting moved, who's going to be moved to a different year group. Yeah. Oh, have you heard? And the funny thing was, I always knew before everybody else because I was an SLT. And I was like, I don't know anything, but I always told my best friend at work, "You're fine, you're staying with me."
Do you know what were your schools like for that? Because I've known schools where they liked a shake up every couple of years to keep the teachers fresh. School I was in, the only time anyone moved was when they wanted to move. Mm-hmm. And that was the big thing. They only moved when they wanted to move. And if not, you stayed exactly where you were.
Yeah, I didn't have that either. There was no like massive, right, this is it.
I've known schools though, I've spoken to people where like every 2 to 3 years, they like the teachers to change around, to push them out the comfort zones, to challenge them, and to like make sure that they're not slacking.
To cause chaos, you mean?
I think it's mad with it.
No, any school I was in, so first school, no one really moved. It was teaching assistants that were moved around more. And then my last school I was just in, no, everyone sort of stayed where they were. But, you know, one school I did work in, there was always the threat that you could be moved. And then some teachers were not told until like, until like mid-June, which is ridiculous because you're waiting. And then you'd be told like maybe you need to move all your classroom, you need to have all of your stuff out and so the new teacher can move in. And like some teachers have bought a lot of stuff of their own, so they have to box all up. By the way, I've still got 2 boxes I need to go back and collect from my old school. Hi, Liam. I just had a text from him this week saying, you've left 2 boxes, come back and get them or we're binning it. But
this is in the school you're in supply?
No, the school imagine I left stuff in supply schools. No, it's the school I was in for 5 years.
I was going to say.
I had boxes upon boxes upon boxes of stuff. And I've left 2 boxes because I don't drive. I've left 2 boxes behind that I keep meaning to go back.
I think if you've left them there for a year, Dan, I think the schools now.
No, they've got wicker baskets in them that I want in case I, ever at some point I think maybe I'll go back part time and do 2 days a week.
At that school.
Not at that school. But oh my goodness, when I was leaving that classroom though, now that you said it, I found the boxes of old, my school reports, because I had to reprint them. And these are the days when, so everyone was given a set day to print reports out a day. You're printing them out this day, you're printing them out the next day, so that no one was clogging up the printer. But there's always SATs booklets coming out.
That's mad.
And I did not realize that we were supposed to use a special kind of buff paper, like a nice, expensive paper
for the reports.
Again,
what's that about? It's all showing it.
What is that about? Scented. No, scented to soften the blow. I'm sorry. Here you go. And then as soon as you hand the reports, like leave. Just leave the school in case anyone has an issue with it. But like you say, I was always that teacher where parents knew. If their child maybe had certain things they had to work on. I never left it until at the end, but I've had colleagues who have had parents come in and bang on the window. Excuse me, it says this. My child can do all these things. And then they have to have the awkward conversation.
Do you know what though? It's just mad with it all, isn't it? Like that idea of like having to run, having to go quick, printing out on different days. Like I do always feel lucky the school I was in, like, I wasn't lucky because I had such a traumatic experience in the first school. I was very particular about the school I went into. But I was thinking I was so lucky, like everything was so flexible at my school in that way.
Sounds good. What year was this?
What, from 2012, 2013 to like
Wow.
2019?
Post-Olympics.
Yeah, do you know what though? It was so flexible. It was so flexible that way. It was, so like we printed when we wanted, we did this. The only time, I didn't even get in trouble for it, but the only time like I got pulled up on printing was...
What did you do?
Do you know what? It was funny. Like, I was looking at, I needed something for, I think for an English standard. I wanted to check something. Oh, we had to redo like kind of our policies for each year group and what we were ticking. So I had to look on the official big thing, and I found a like official government thing which had like the standards and things you needed to do in every year.
The national curriculum.
Yeah,
No.
but yeah, that's it. I think it was. No, the full national curriculum. But you know, like the full thing. And I was looking at it on my computer. And then while I was teaching, I'd put some books down on my keyboard and it hit print. And then the secretary was going around all the classrooms going, and she come in and she said, have you printed off like a big document? And I was like, no. And she was like, oh, okay. And then she went to the next one around everyone. And then she come back and she was like, I've checked with everyone. She said, if you definitely not thingy? They said, no, what is it? And she said, I was like, oh, yeah. And then I looked and I'd printed it, but we were on something like page 200 out of 700.
The fumes coming off the printer, the smell of toner fills the room.
But she was like, yeah, something started printing. And then after a while, I was like, this is still going. But I think it was the full national curriculum. Like every page. And we got 200 into like 700 pages.
700
but that was the only time I think anyone ever got questioned on printing in the school. We used to print whatever we wanted.
Oh, I used to do that. And then, now that you're saying that, oh my goodness. Do you know the school that I worked in where, if you've listened to a previous episode, they put a photograph of our desks on the screen?
Oh,
that school, listen to this. They had another staff meeting, and because these are the days now when you have a code to log into the printer, so everyone can be tracked. They know who's printing what and if it's in color. So each teacher was costed up the amount of money that they're spending on printing. Guess who was number one? It was me. I've always wanted to be number one. I've always wanted to win. I was like, do I get a medal? Do I get something? No, you lose your TA. I was like, excuse me?
You lose your TA.
If you continue printing this way, you will not have a TA. We can't afford it. So choose printing or TA. And I went, but I like printing in color. Print it in black and white. No, these children need color in their lives. I'm going to print out Goldilocks and the Three Bears in black and white.
It's such a tough one. And I think it's funny with that when schools have the budget. You know, it's like you've got your own one. Because year 6, obviously they're printing loads. I would say year 5. Like then it should be, apart from year 6, which is an outlier, it should be. And maybe actually reception should be a bit of an outlier because probably not on worksheets that much. But like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The older you get, the less printing there should be. Do you know, like,
because they're using books.
Yeah, but you're using books, but more like, you're not doing the worksheets as much. Where in year 1, they're going to need a lot more. So it's mad that like you have a budget where I'd have the same budget as a year 1 teacher, and yet I'd basically have free reign to print whatever I want because I don't need to print that much. Where they'd have to be like, right, can we get away with this? Can we get away with that?
You're printing your holiday boarding pass.
Oh, I did that every year.
Oh, I did that. I was like, oh no. Because when I was being told off about printing, I was like, oh no, I think I've printed all some family photographs in colour to make a scrapbook for someone's birthday. After hours, like 5 o'clock, balaclava on, print. You're looking around and I've got my Ryanair boarding pass to go home. I always felt like I was breaking the law. But yeah, I was told I was spending way too much money on the printing, but they need it colour. And like you say, we're in early years, we didn't have worksheets, but I had to print resources or stuff for displays. You had to do all the, you had to do like their photos. Yeah.
You had to probably have I'm thinking about in
learning
lesson,
journeys.
where I was like, user out loud, don't have to print that much. I'm thinking about like worksheets. You wouldn't have had that many worksheets you had to print out. But yeah, you would have had actually the photos, wouldn't you? And they would have to be in colour.
Yeah. We used to have like learning journeys. You'd print all those out. And then you would have like displays where you'd have photographs on the wall. And you just reminded me of something. When I first started doing school reports, they wanted the children's picture on. But I'd already printed all mine out. So I had to go and print all the photographs out, guillotine them, and glue every child's photograph to the front of the report. And I remember my head teacher came in, she was like, picking at it. Oh, we need to show you how to use clip. And I was like, clip?
What's a clip?
Snip. I was like, you mean snip? How to snip the picture? But I was like, I know how to do a document. I grew up in the days of, Claris Works. I think that was what it was called in secondary school, ICT lessons. I remember when schools had ICT suites. We had an ICT suite at my first school and a swimming pool. I know. Swimming pool's probably used for storage now.
Swimming pool's a mad one, like.
Yeah. We did take our reception for swimming lessons. Guess who taught it? Me. I'm not a swimming teacher or anything. And there I am. When I first started teaching, I wore a shirt and tie every single day. So I'm in there and the smell of chlorine. Oh my goodness me. They have to get changed. Mine was always before lunch. And I had an hour to get them in. They had to get changed. I got into a meter pool. And these are little reception children. And they were all crying, scared, get in that pool. And Ofsted were there the year whenever, and they came to watch me and I was doing swimming. I was like, right, everyone, hold on to the float. I'm not in the pool with them. Hold the float and kick, kick, kick. It actually went really, really well, but I was drenched in sweat. And then they had to get changed and go straight to lunch. And I had to carry all their PE bags back, all their swimming bags back. And I was like, get these away from me. Can you believe it? I put that in the school report at the end of the year. Did not swim very well.
So you had that, what? Yeah. That'd be mad. But like even like the computer suites, that must have been mad with like reception.
Oh, so they had to learn how to log in. So they all had a little login, which is made by the ICT guy. But I remember I was like, can it not just be their name? And 1, 2, 3. He went, no. It's good for them to have. No. Believe me, we'll never get logged in. Never. Because they didn't know, because the keyboard's in capital letters. And they only know lowercase. I was like, oh my goodness me. So I had to print all their names out in caps. And I was able to do 1, 2, 3 after that. And then we went from having mouse mats. I knew money was running out. Mouse mats to folded up newspapers as the mouse mat. And then they can't double click because they don't have the motor skills. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I remember when they had to do things like create a picture. And all of the pictures were just like a spray paint thing on a paint program. And we had to print them out. And like, look what I've made. I remember I made a whole display out of their ICT pictures and it just looked like a spray can had been over them all. Or like the dragged shapes across. Like, yeah, that's fine. Type your name and their name would be all spelt wrong or at capital letters. Eventually they did get there in the end, but it was stressful. They had an hour. So I would send Karen, my TA, down. So we would say we went at 9:15. Karen, go down and wake up all the computers. By the time I go down and wake them all up, by the time we got down, they've all shut down again. Or it got to the point where 2 or 3 children had to share one computer because they were starting to break down. Oh, and that was bad.
That was never fun when they had to share 2. Like 2 of them on. Especially with something like that because it's so like one person, isn't it?
Yeah.
One person's just got to sit there and watch.
Mm-hmm. And I was ICT coordinator at one point. Yeah, I put it on I've put that on the CV, even though I wasn't very good at it. I'm never going to do it again, but it's nice to have it on the CV. That means I got called at the report season when the paper jammed.
Subject leadership was such a weird, still is a weird thing in schools because no one ever does it in their chosen one.
Yeah.
No one ever gets taught what to do. I think it's mad. Like, I think the highlight of subject leadership for me was when I was maths lead. So I was, in my second year, I was maths lead. And I was maths lead for like 3 years.
Oh, wow.
But I was maths lead because the head wanted to implement new math stuff and he wanted to implement it all himself. So he just picked, I was the NQT. So he just picked the NQT. He was like, do you want to lead maths? And I was like, yeah. What do I have to do? He was like, nothing. And he did. I was basically just like the face of maths. And he did everything and he did everything. And the only thing I ever did for 3 years as maths lead was do lesson observations with the head on the deputy head because he needed someone with him to do the lesson observation. So once a year, I'd sit in a lesson. At the end, they go, "What do you think of that?" And I go, yeah, it was good. And that was it. Like, that was it. And then when I become the science and computing lead, I was like, oh, okay, like, this is what being an actual lead is. Like, I didn't have to do anything. So I implemented a brand new maths system with new things, everything. I had none of it.
Ordered the dice.
Didn't even get to do that.
I wonder what the budget would be as a maths lead. EYFS budget. I remember once I got given £500 and I was like, oh, good. Big wow. What am I going to get with that? By the time I buy basic stationery, I think I had like £30. And I got nothing. Have you ever seen the Ian Bale thing? I've got nothing. And like they were like, Dan, have you not bought new resources for the classroom? No, because I just spent £100 on glue sticks.
Do you know what though? Again, that's another wild one though, is it? Because PE was basically like, so she bit like, it was in the same league, wasn't it? As, sorry to anyone who's really passionate about it, you know, history or geography, or it was in that league of like, you're the lead of that. Don't worry about it. Computing, considering now it's got all the technology with it and everything like that, is in there as well.
I'd hate to be PE lead, only because of the story.
But then it become the most important one because of the sugar tax thing.
Oh, yes.
I know. I remember the PE lead in our school. She was like, one year it was like, yeah, just do what you want. Next year it was like, right, you've got like £50,000 to spend this year.
50k, and it's people premium. You need to show what you're doing here, and you start creating events for no reason. What are we doing today?
Yeah,
Hot
she was
for
like, what? You were like,
Hot for health.
There was some schools which were buying like minibuses.
Minibuses?
Yeah, because
to go to events.
They said it was to the events, just so the school had a minibus. Like, because there was that much. We had like new gym equipment put in the playground, and you know, all the playground equipment, everything like that. It was mad to think like someone was just kind of like, no training, no nothing. Oh, by the way, you've got this budget to deal with now. You've got to decide what it's on. You've got to justify. You've got to do this. Any training for that? Nah.
No.
Put you on a Twilight.
No one ever puts anything back in the PE cupboard where it belongs.
No.
And because I've been on supply this last year, I've been teaching PE, which is basically like just bringing them to the hall and throwing around some balls. But I try and do it properly. And I go into the PE cupboard and I'm like, oh my goodness. I was like, what? It looks like someone bombed it. I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to die in here. And I'm trying to get to the back to get like cones, you know, the domes. And I can see them right at the back. And I'm like, do I risk life and limb to climb over this trolley, to go under the benches, to get over the mats that stink, to get those domes? No, I'm not doing it. I'll just make up the PE lesson on the spot.
You know what though? They're the best ones.
Oh yeah.
You still love just playing rounders or cricket or kickball or whatever, just over on the field. We do nothing. We did used to have a lad though who was allergic to grass, so it did feel bad to him.
Allergic to grass?
Yeah, he was allergic to grass. He wasn't allowed on grass.
Right.
So
I've never heard that.
I hadn't. But
I know people who are allergic to PE. I was one when I was younger. I'm not doing it.
Well, I used to feel really sorry for him because he'd be like, what are we doing this afternoon? And I'd be like, we're playing kickball. And he'd be like, oh, yes. I'd be like, over on the field. He'd be like, oh, am I? I was like, yeah. So he just have to get a couple of books and go sit outside the office just be like, how long are you over there for? I'd be like, next few hours.
All afternoon.
That time in summer, like now, where like,
this is it.
You go over and you're like, oh, we'll just sit over here. Should we go back for break? I'd be like, nah. I'd be like, what about such? I'd be like, nah.
Now that you're saying that, there's a school I was in recently on supply, not the one I'm in right now, a different one. And it was a sunny day like it is today. And they were all like having break time. And I have a whistle on my lanyard. And I know I have to get in at 10:30 to do something. So I go to do it. I go to, literally my arm raises and the TA goes, pushes my arm down. She goes, no, give it another 15. I was like, another 15? She was like, yeah. And I was like, good. Because I'm being paid to stand on the playground. I was like, that's fine. So then I reached down, sunglasses go on. I'm like, this is great. This is good. But then also it just popped into my head. Have you ever had your own school reports as you as a teen or a child that comments? Have you ever looked back at them? One of mine said, although Dan is not athletically inclined, he still shows up to the lesson and stands there.
Stands there.
Because I refused to take part. Because I was a big boy. Always was. Not anymore. In a different way. And I hated PE. Absolutely. And so I used to spend my Sundays thinking of an excuse. And I was able to forge my mum's handwriting because her scrawl is just as bad as mine. Sorry. And I used to have the best excuses to get out of PE. But I remember like the teacher would be like, well, just you wait till I write in your school report. Your mum and dad will know all about it then.
No, I don't think I've ever looked back. My mother just said, sits there. Doesn't do anything.
Sits there.
I clicked on very early on in school. Well, actually, I clicked on very early on in school that the teachers were just blagging most of the time. And that if you just sat there quietly, you didn't have to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember, so I was in year one. I remember it. Do you know what? It was year one when I learned that we got differentiated work.
What gave it away?
I got moved tables. She'd shuffled around the tables and I was on the bottom table. I was on the bottom table, and it was like, write out like the letter cat, and the cat was like, and you'd have to
tracing in yellow.
Yeah, tracing yellow. And then I can't remember why a couple of tables got swapped around, and I was on this other table, and it was like the top table. Mm-hmm. And I remember like she explained what to do. And I was there. I remember being like, what? And then I remember turning to one of the other kids and going, what have we got to do? And she said, with this kid, he went, all you got to do is, so you got to think of a word. We got a list of words in front of us. You got to look at it. You got to get the thesaurus, and you've got to find words that do the same thing. And I was like, what?
Did you sit at that table by accident?
Yeah, I was like, what? So I was like, so the teacher come round and was like, how you all getting on? And what this kid said, I think Martin's struggling. And she went, oh, why are you struggling? And I just looked at her like, like, I could see like, oh, and I could see in her face as if like, oh, I shouldn't have put him on this table.
You've disappointed her. Her whole seating plan is gone.
But it was like something had happened where she had to swap some people about. And she was like, Martin, you go sit on that table. And then, because I was quite quiet, I'll sit there. But I think when I was on the table, then she was like, that's when the realization had come where she was like, oh, like, I've put him on a table which he should be on. And I remember sitting there, and the gap between what I was doing the day before and this was where I was like, we aren't all doing the same work in this classroom.
You're like, oh, guess what I've seen over there? They've got better pencils. They've got cushions to sit on.
I think it was more like they've got pencils.
They've got crayons. Isn't that? But yeah, that is so true though. So true.
Just remember it just being like, what's this? Like it was, honest to God, like year one, super high ability. They were like, give them a word. They were finding a thesaurus and they were like writing these words out. And table which I should have been on was like copying out the word cat, which was written. And like you had to write it out. And I just remember,
draw a picture of a cat.
I remember the first thing thinking, I want to be back on that table. And the second thing was, wow, we all do different work. And this teacher did not notice that I was not supposed to be doing this work.
So she's winging it. She's like, back you go, Martin, over there. I knew ours. I remember, I think I would have been P4, which is, I don't know if P4 is year 3 over here. I think it is. So, because we've got P7, which would be year 7. You don't have a year 7 in primary school, so we don't.
No.
So
you should know this.
Yeah, I should know. I only know as far. You only know what you know. I was like, for me, it's like, yeah, Key Stage 1 and EYFS. Anyway, so I remember they had eyeballs on the work. So I think 2 eyeballs means you were more able, and 1 meant that you weren't. I always had the 2 eyeballs. I remember I was sitting with my friend Nora, and I was like, we've got 2 eyeballs on the sheet. Look at his. He's only got 1. I was that child. But then I got moved to a table on my own to face the wall because I couldn't stop talking. And I used to have this bad habit of, we had Beryl felt tips you don't get in schools probably these days. Beryls, like actual brand. You know, they've been tested so they're not toxic. Those types of felt tips, not the cheap ones these days. And if you took the lid off, it made this sound. And I just kept doing it. I remember my teacher was like, stop doing that now. And I was like, okay. And I waited for the whole class to go silent. And I was like, Daniel, get up. And I get sent over to sit in the corner. And you know, I have the little trays under the table. And I took all my stuff with me. And well, these folders are mine. And I went and sat facing the wall. And I remember going, oh my God, this is it. I'm going to get in so much trouble. And I think that was on that. So my school reports used to say, finds it hard to pay attention, sings in class when not needed. Those are the
you had the report
bits.
now, I'd probably say that.
It would probably sings when not needed in class. You know how you get your when you're a teacher, you still get reports. It's your lesson observation.
Yeah,
Was not prepared. That was never me. I actually always had, touch wood, I've always had a great lesson observation. I've never ever had one where it's been a complete disaster.
yeah. I can't think of many I don't think there's really any I've had. Again, I think it's just that thing, isn't it? Planning.
Yeah.
Planning it.
Even when I was an astronaut, it doesn't disaster.
Yeah. Do you know what I do think though? I don't know about you. You probably, obviously, you spoke about like being dressed as an astronaut, everything like that. You probably did. I was very much of the opinion of when I had the lesson observation, don't take any risks. Like literally just like nail the basics of it and you always do well. And I'd always be on that cusp between like good and outstanding. It's kind of where I wanted to be. Didn't want anyone coming to... I think my biggest nightmare would have been if they were like, this lesson is so good, we want the other teachers to come and see how good it is. I wanted to be on that thing of like, yeah, it's good.
I've had that from others. I used to thrive on that, but then look what it did to me. Look what it did. I had like other schools come to visit. Actually, saying that now that I've got myself sorted for the past 2 years, I had other schools coming around to look, and I used to love it until the days when I didn't.
Yeah.
And there was one day where they had, this was last year. Oh my goodness. They didn't tell me. I thought it was one school that was coming, but there was like 12. And they put on a spread in the staff room and I was really, really tired. And I come into the staff room and I don't say hello to anyone. I make myself a coffee. Stir, stir, stir. My lovely deputy head teacher at the time comes over and she was like, Dan, are you okay? And I was like, no. Nobody told me there was going to be this many people. And she's like, just turn it on, be Mr. Mac. And I was like, okay then. So, okay. I had a quick sip and I turned around. I was like, hi, everybody. Welcome. Let's go look at my classroom. And she was like, dial it in. No, it's too late now. So like you're saying, I used to put on these showpiece lessons. But then if you look back now that my school reports as a child, needs to calm down.
I used to, honest to God, I used to do, so mine was, in our school, mine was the only room with a door.
What?
Yeah, so the school, it was mad. The school was built in like the mid 80s as a school. But it was like...
asbestos everywhere.
Well, yeah, probably. But what was mad though is like, there was bits added on, but there was still only like 7 classrooms.
Do you know when you say bits, was it the same color or could you tell? These bricks were on seal.
You could tell it was different. It was like a school, and then there was a corridor down to like another bit of the school, which was obviously added on, and then there was my bit, which was like kind of stuck on, just my classroom. But because of that, it was the only one with a door. Everything else in the school was like open plan as you come down. Mine used to have a door, and if we ever had people coming round, so I'd always have the doors open, with like door stops to keep it there. If we ever had anyone coming round, whether it was like the governors or parents or anything, I used to shut the door because I knew it was
welcome.
I knew it was so awkward for them to like open the door and come in. So they just look through the glass. But again, the way it was set up, it was on the side I was teaching anyway, and it was basically just facing our cupboard. So they'd like have a quick look in through the glass and go to the rest. But the other rooms, like they'd stand there for like 5 minutes, like watching because it was just like, you'd lean against the thing and it was a big open like fishbowl. And that was my thing. I didn't want anyone in the classroom.
I know. Do I know what I do not like? And it's not a natural experience for children to have more than 4 adults walk into a room. I've had it before where there's like 8 adults walk in, clipboards, lanyards, jingle, jingle, and they all get a seat. Where are the children going to sit when they go to do the work? And they're just staring. The boys and girls are like, So like the adults, I'm trying to get them back. Everyone look at me. But then years ago, in my first go, my lovely head teacher at the time, I said to my class, we're going to have a laugh today. They're like, why? And I was like, Mrs., I'm not going to say her name, was coming in later to watch me. When she comes in, everyone point at her. So she comes in and they all just go like this, like children of the damned. I'm pointing at her and she was like, what's going on? I was like, oh, nothing. She was like, Dan, you are wild.
You know, though, it's all just weird though, isn't it? Like, even I think, like, going to watch Best Practice, it is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
what am I looking at?
What are you looking at? Everyone teaches differently. Mm-hmm. Everyone does it. And do you know what? We were talking about this before, like, the thing, like, heads, deputies, SLT, everyone's got different ideas about stuff. So, like, I remember when I was teaching, when I was teacher training, there was a girl who was on the course with me and she got praised. She went into this school and it sounds like, bear in mind, she's like a year, what were we in? Our 4th year. So we were in our 4th year on teacher practice, final year, but she went into this school. She was in like year 3 and it was a bit of a rowdy school and she set up like this system for a reward scheme for them where like it was money, like school money. And then at the end they had a shop and everything like that. And they like proper praised her because it was like values and, she brought in this new system and they actually adopted it through the whole school. And I'm sure they offered her a job and they were like, do you want this? Because it's so good. And I remember thinking back on it, like at the time I was like, wow. And I remember thinking back on it and I was like, do you know what? If a student come into my class and was like, this is the behavior system that I'm going to implement, I'd be like, no. I'd be like, don't employ her.
Sounds like a game show.
It was praised for like basically, which is a good idea. Basically, because they were using money, that's it. Rather than you getting a point or you getting this or a dojo point or anything like that, they were getting money. And then at the end of the week, they'd get to decide whether they want to spend it as a reward or they want to save it up and build it up. And they could
spend or save.
Yeah.
Spend or
so
save.
It was giving them that like banking system and everything like that. And you're like, oh, that is good. But like, I'd be a bit annoyed if someone just come into my classroom and was like, this is what we're doing now. I'd be like, no.
I'd be like, you're in debt. You've got no money left. You're bankrupt.
And that's it. And to me, I think you've got to have that freedom as a teacher. And everyone's got their own way of teaching. Like, I just know even without seeing you teach, like how you've talked about teaching, and it would be a great experience for the kids. It would not be a great experience if you wanted me to teach that way because that's not me.
Yeah.
And so if you went, right, you've got to go see, we were in the same school, like, you've got to see Dan, you've got to see how he teaches. It would be a waste of an hour for me because I'd be like, that's great. Are you going to do it? No. Like, I'm not going to.
Which is good though, because I've been sent to teachers and I'm like, I can see why that works and I can take some bits from it.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not going to change who I am.
And I personally am of opinion with interviews, with lesson observations, with Ofsted, with all of it, like going in and watching a lesson is pointless. Absolutely pointless because you don't get anything from it. You don't get anything at all.
If anyone's watching, the dog just licked my knee. Lol. No, I totally agree with you. Like that's happened in the past where one of my colleagues had come watch me and me to adopt some things that I do.
But then
and she was like, I am not putting on a superhero cape. It's not going to happen. I went, good for you. And why should you? Like, I can see why you have to have a consistent thing with like school reports. Like, they're all in the same format, blah, blah, blah. But you should be able to choose if you want to get them done quickly. Yeah, you should be. No head teacher should be like, no one is using ChatGPT. No one is using. If you're gonna let your teachers claim back a bit of their own life, and that means that they come in to that classroom and are able to give their all for those kids during the day, then I would choose that.
Yeah. To me, perfect report would literally be an A4 piece of paper. A4 piece of paper, which has a comment off the kids, a comment off the teacher, and then some data and a nice picture of them.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be it. 10 minutes work. That's all it should
Yeah,
be.
that's something that you'd want to keep.
Yeah.
Not like the one that your friend had where you flick past 4 pages of guff to get to the bit that they want to see. I agree.
That's it. Parents will probably, I reckon if you do the census in every school, parents would tell you the only thing they're bothered about is that personal comment. So why keep the rest?
Mm-hmm.
Why, they're great at doing this, or they're great at doing that, or they're great at ticking this standard. No parent cares.
Mm-hmm.
They want maybe a nice comment off the kids, their favourite memory of the school year, comments about from the teacher, and a nice picture. That's it.
Yeah. Like when I reduced mine down to like the personal comment, yeah, it has some sort of similar statements in them, but I was always able to come up with something for each child where it was like hilarious. One of my favorite ones was a couple of years ago. There was a child in my class and he always used to tell me he hated me. He said, I hate you, Mr. Mac. I hate you. And he used to call me Chubby Cheeks McFarland. Chubby Cheeks McFarland, I'm not listening to you. And this was when I was starting my well-being journey. So he wouldn't call me that now. Anyway, so it went from Chubby Cheeks McFarland to I'm going to miss you, Mr. Mac. And I wrote that in his school report. I was like, it's been a real journey this year from I hate you to Chubby Cheeks McFarland to I'm going to miss you. And I went, what more could you want?
That's like what makes me laugh with that though. Like it's mad at that age for him to be saying that, like what, 4 or 5?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think when you hear stuff like that, I always picture like the years I taught, which is where they're like, 10, 11. Like, but at 4 years old to be like, I hate this teacher this much for bringing me in here that I'm going to do this.
Some of them actually, some of the things they come out with, I'm like, right. My nephew, I was staying over at my sister's house one time and my sister had to tell him off. Of course you have to. And she brought them upstairs and he turned around to her and he said, he is 3. Ma, never speak to me that way again in front of Dan. And she was like, right. And then yesterday in the class I'm in, I have my YouTube channel up, playing them some of my songs. And this little boy goes, you used to be fat. And I was like, oh my goodness, how rude. He went, look everyone, look at him. And I'm like, okay, we can all calm down now. And he looks like, he needs to work on that. But I just was like, how dare you? Or like the little girl who a few episodes ago, she said to me, you've got purple under your eyes, you're tired. And I was like, oh, okay. Like imagine if we said things like that to them or the parents.
Yeah. What was the one I remember the session teacher coming in once. This kid was like wild. But he was playing like in the mud, like grass soil bit in the playground. And she come in and she was like, oh, he'd been there about 3 weeks at a time. She was like, oh, everyone's going to have to watch him. And we were like, why? And I just went up to him and was like, oh, hi, how are you getting on? You're playing nice there. He's like, yeah. She was like, what are you doing? He's like, just making graves. Oh. And she went, what? She went, yeah. That's mummy's grave. That's daddy's grave. That's granddad's grave. And he said, and then he just turned with a big smile and went, and that's your grave. And she was like, oh.
What in the ring is going on? I'd be like, let's get a seance going in this classroom. Stat, these are your graves. Oh my goodness me. No, absolutely not. I don't think I've ever had anything that severe.
But it was mad with him. They got a psychologist in, and the psychologist said this kid didn't understand, which I think it shows how much different things like everyone. So this kid didn't understand hierarchies and didn't see himself as a child. So in the classroom, he saw him and the teacher on equal footing. Then all the teaching assistants. And then all the children.
Oh God.
And he did not see anyone as above him in the classroom.
Right.
Not that like you're above the children, but
he thinks he's in charge.
If you told the children to do something,
he was standing there like, right.
If you said like, okay, children, we're going to do this. he would not class himself as one of the children. So he wouldn't do it. And he'd just carry on playing and they'd be like, no, you got to stop. And he'd be like, nah, I tell you when to stop. And he'd just carry on playing.
He's got a lanyard on.
But he'd also be like to the TAs, he'd be like, hey, come here, do that. And if they were like, you need to come and do this work, he'd be like, you didn't tell me what to do.
That would make me laugh at the same time. And I'm like, oh, that would actually make the day pass in a lot quicker.
Would probably for the first week.
Yes. And then that's when it grates. You're like, oh, isn't that cute? 2 weeks in, sit down now. Stop it. How would you put that into the school report?
Oh, I think he got a very special school report.
Shows good leadership skills. There was a little boy in my class who used to throw the wooden blocks across the classroom, and he hurt so many children across the year. And I went, he's a very good thrower. And so I was like, good at PE. He could be a future Olympian in the shot put. That's how I worded that. And like the parent came to me and she knows that I'm like, she's like, that was hilarious. We all laughed at that. And I like when the parents come back and go, I really like this bit in here that you put. That made us all laugh.
I find sometimes though, like the toughest kids have the parents who are like, yeah, we know.
We know.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I don't like, sometimes the parents are like, we're very sorry that they gave you a tough year. I'm like, no, it's been fabulous. Even though you're like, thank goodness that year is gone.
I think I don't know whether it's how you position yourself in the school or whether it's as you get older in the school. Apart from now and again, a couple of parents who were like tough, I did not have any relationships with any of the parents where we'd even get to the point of us having that conversation.
No,
just be like, and I think that all comes from stuff like as they get older, you don't have to see them out. So because I was year 5, I used to let them go. I'd be like, okay, you go. So I'd never see the parents at the end of the day, which also meant that no parents would ever come and speak to me at the end of the day.
I saw them every morning,
every day.
At the end of every day.
We actually, I think the year or two before I joined the school, they used to line up. Quite a lot of schools do, where they'll line up and the teachers will come out and collect them. The schools stopped there about 2 years before I got there. And the kids would just filter into the school. And they said they did that because too many parents wanted to have quick little chats with the teacher. So they just were like, let's get rid of that. At the end of the day, I never saw the parents. They'd have to ring up if they had
And there's
a
always that one who you see them getting ready to go. I'm like, no, what can I say? I'm like, I've got an appointment. Book an appointment. Get your calendar up. See, I'm booked.
But I think with it all, with report writing, with lessons, everything, I think you've just got to see it for what it is and just, it sounds horrible to say, but it's a box ticking exercise.
It is.
I think where you need to put the effort in is that personal comment. 2, 3 sentences tops. Do them first. Put your effort into that and go and blag the rest of it.
Blag the rest of it.
Blag the rest of it.
I agree.
Get it done nice and easy. Get it done nice and quick. And just tick a box with it.
And enjoy the sunshine.
Yeah.
Because it'll help you enjoy the rest of the term.
If it takes longer than 2 days to do your reports, you're putting too much effort into what they are.
I agree.
Like that's a big one.
A week is too long.
Yeah.
A half term is too long.
It is. You shouldn't be giving up your weekends. You shouldn't be giving up your nights. You should just be getting it done in PPA. And if you're not, it's challenging the school and going, why are we making this report? Some do like where it's 4 or 5 sides.
Mm-hmm.
Nah.
I used to hate proofreading them. I lose the will. So last year I proofread every other one.
Yeah.
Hope for the best.
Well, that's another one. Anyone who's proofreading, I would honestly be getting ChatGPT, copy it all, stick it in, proofread that for me.
You young teachers have it easy. In my day, I had to get out the glasses and read each one, and I would get square eyes, and I'd fall asleep proofreading during the day, and I'd be like, "Did I read that? Yeah, I think so." Save. Then there's he, she's, and everything in it. No.
But now, I think it's a good place for us to wrap that one up. But yeah, report writing, take as little as possible. That'd be my biggest message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and drop us a little report by leaving us a comment or a review on Apple, Spotify, or comment on YouTube, because it helps the podcast see more people. We can help more people and spread the word.
Do you know what though? As well, I learned about that. does not matter what your comment is. Doesn't matter what the comment is, just the more comments there are. So if you want to argue with Dan about which is the best Spice Girl or something like that.
Which one do you think I think is the best one?
I don't know. Probably because she got to be the biggest out of them. Jerry Halliwell.
No, wrong. Melanie C. And Jerry's a close second. Yeah. Anyway. Who's yours? Drop it in the comments.
Oh, nice. But no, we'll wrap it up there. It'd be interesting to see what comments we get on Spice Girls.
Yeah, go for it. Mel C, look me up.
Nice. Not bad.
Bye, everyone.
I know.